Support for this podcast is brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. We take a closer look at our human experiences and use stories to explore culture, history, and contemporary issues. You can find us on thinkwhy.org.
I spent a year pretending that I had Alzheimer's. That was interesting. It drove my wife nuts.
Hello, I'm Emmy DeGrappa. This is What's Your Why? Each week we bring you stories asking our guests the question why. We learn about their passion, why they do what they do, why should we care, and what can we learn? What better place to explore the human landscape than from the state known for its incredible landscapes, Wyoming? And what better organization than Wyoming Humanities? Serving our state for over 45 years, we share stories, ideas, and wisdom about the human experience. Welcome to What's Your Why? Today, we are talking to Tim Sandlin. Tim is an author and a screenwriter, and his most well-known work is called Grovant Trilogy, which is actually made up of 4 books, not 3. And they include Skip Parts, Sorrow Floats, Social Blunders, and the final one is called Lydia. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I want you to kind of go down a road with me, because you've been writing for how many years?
57, maybe, 54, something
Wow.
like that. I don't know. All my life.
Really? Have you been writing all your life? What was
Since I first learned how to write, yeah.
When did you know you wanted to be a writer? When did it become
Well, I started writing pretty young. I bought my first writer's market when I was 14 from the Valley Shop, which is now Valley Books. I didn't actually publish anything till I was 37, but I wrote every day between 14 and 37. I just wasn't publishing.
Did your parents realize that that was a passion you had?
Well, yeah, that's what I majored in college, in creative writing and professional writing, and my mom was a writer of sorts. So they were happy to have me be a writer.
Has it been great?
Oh, I've enjoyed it. It's a good way to spend your life. It's all I've ever known how to do and all I've ever wanted to do. By the time I was 10, I knew what I was going to do in life, and that it's a lot easier to get what you want when you know what you want.
Well, that's true.
Especially as young as possible. Yeah.
So you can remember as far back as 10 years old that you knew that that's what you were going to grow up and become.
Sort of. I first started writing stories somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. Maybe 14. I don't know. Been writing enough to get the writer's market and try to sell the things at 14.
So what is the writer's market?
It's a big book that tells you where to send your stories and try to get them published in books.
What was your inspiration for starting the Jackson Hole Writers Conference?
I wanted somebody to talk to. I don't ski and I don't sell real estate, so I had nothing to talk to anyone about. I would just sit in my little apartment and write all winter, and then I would go to the cowboy and dance and drink. But I didn't know anyone who was interested in what I was interested in. And I met a few writers, and we decided to start this conference. So once a year, I could talk to somebody who was interested in what I'm interested in, which is writing, reading.
Mm-hmm. So do you spend a lot of time reading and developing your characters? You know, because you've lived most of your life in Jackson. Is that correct?
Most of it, yeah.
And so you were born in Oklahoma.
Yes.
And then you moved to Jackson at what age?
Well, my dad worked for the national park in the summers. So from 1960 till around 67 or 8, I was seasonal, only here in the summer. And then as soon as I could, I came up permanently.
And so what influenced your books?
I wanted to know why people do what they do. I mean, many people take actions that are against their interest. And I always wondered why, and why do people do what they do? So if I could be like 10 different people, then I could explore all the different ways of being instead of just being stuck with me. And that was fun.
And so that's kind of what this show is about. Why do people do what they do? Because that is the core of the humanities, is the question why. So all the studies which includes literature.
Well, it's a good question. It's probably the most important question.
So that's why when I ask you, what was your passion that kept you going, delving deeper into your books?
To understand people, create people, to live many lives instead of just one, to get what I think across so that people might listen to what I think. I mean, it's a pretty arrogant thing to think that people should listen to you, especially complete strangers. And so writing fiction is a good way to do that.
Are there social issues that you are trying to get across to your reader? Are there things that you're passionate about in society that you're talking about in your books?
Well, there's been 11 books spread over 40 years or so. So,
wow.
To say that there's one social issue, I think being nice is better than being cruel and bad. That's my social issue. Be kind to people. Give yourself a break. Those are the two things that I stress.
So, like in your book, Jimi Hendrix turns 80. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I got the
Jimi
name
Hendrix
wrong.
is about to turn 80.
Okay, so
There are social issues in that book. Yeah.
right, that's what I think I was trying to understand.
American society treats their seniors like crap, which is interesting because, the goal is to become one. So why would you treat people so badly when you think that someday you might be one? But with seniors, they're treated really poorly in this country.
What makes you say that?
Look at,
are you talking about nursing homes?
Yeah, nursing homes and, just the fact that you turn invisible when you hit about 55 or 60. Very few people see you when you do things, and they don't take you seriously. The government, like right now, what they're doing with this new tax thing where they're going to take away Social Security and Medicare and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was an issue. With Jimi Hendrix Turns 80, I talked about it. A lot of those guys were losing control. The book's set in California, and I think you can do it in Wyoming, where the court can choose somebody to take control of your finances, somebody you don't even know, and they take all your money away from you and all your freedom, and you have no choice in the matter.
Isn't that why people do estate planning and...
I don't know anything about estate planning.
Or living wills?
I don't know anything about that. I know that a lot of people lose control of their lives as they get older, and they revert.
And they don't have anyone watching over them.
Yeah, and the ones who are watching over them take stuff away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are people who get old and are happy as clams, but it's tough.
Did each one of your books in your Grovant 4-book trilogy have an inspiration for you to start writing it?
Well, my first 5 books were kind of about me. And I would have a problem, and then I would write 100,000 words, and the problem would go away. And then I ran out of problems, and that's when I started writing screenplays, because you don't have to have anything to say to write a screenplay. So I suppose that those books all were somewhere underlying way deep down in there about me and things I was thinking about at the time.
And then when you were writing screenplays, how was that work different than writing?
Oh, well, 3 of them were my own books, and then the other 7 or 8 would they call up and say, here's a book, adapt it to a movie. And then you have all these committee meetings where they tell you what they want you to do. So it's not anywhere near the same as writing your own book and your own story.
So you don't have as much passion for it?
A lot of people have a whole lot of passion at it, which probably means they're more successful than I was. I was always a little bit, hired gun when it came to screenplays, which is probably why I'm not doing it anymore, because I didn't have massive passion. About the only reason I can see for writing movies is to make money, and you don't want to do anything if the only reason you're doing it is to make money. That's stupid.
What are you working on right now?
I just finished a book which is a memoir about a guy with dementia. So I spent a year pretending that I had Alzheimer's. That was interesting. It drove my wife nuts. And I keep rewriting that, and I'm hoping somebody might publish it.
How do you pretend to have Alzheimer's?
Well, you just forget a lot of things.
Well, I do that anyway, so.
Yeah, well, I kind of become my characters. Sometimes it gets kind of scary and clinical, so that when I become my character and my character has dementia, I just kind of stumble around the building here. You know? Like, for instance, I don't know the names of hardly anybody I know. Things like that. The names go first and then the nouns. And then you start peeing yourself in public and things like that. But I didn't get that far along. My guy is very early on.
Oh, okay. He's just developing dementia.
He's forgotten names and he makes a few mistakes every now and then.
What do you think, is that a reflection of that you're aging and you're dealing with that in your own way?
I guess this is the second book I've written about old people. And when I was young, I wrote about young people. It makes it a lot easier to do the research when you're writing about your own age group. And in today's society, it's really hard to write an imaginative, funny novel because people will jump all over you for appropriating things. You can't write about, is it from a different gender, race, or age group these days the way, people did for the last 400 years.
That's interesting.
And writing humor is a lot harder now because you're going to offend everybody or somebody. And now if you offend somebody, they jump all over Facebook or someplace and ramp each other up.
Well, I hear you saying that writing has become politically correct.
Politically correct has been used the wrong way by people who use it as a weapon. But, it's much harder. I was taught that, when I was just in college, write something from the point of view of a different species or age group or gender. I mean, Agatha Christie wrote from this male point of view for so long. She couldn't get away with that now, I guess. I don't know. And now the last couple of books I've written have been basically about me, so I'm okay. I'm safe right now.
And this book that you're working on, what's the name of it?
Watch Me Disappear.
Watch Me Disappear.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get dementia, is you disappear. And then, of course, when you die, you disappear, which is the ultimate magic trick.
Do you have any advice for young writers who are aspiring to make their living as a writer?
Read everything you can and write every day.
Do you have any favorite writers that have inspired you?
Over the years, that's kind of evolved, but Larry McMurtry, John Nichols, Jim Harrison, Sarah Bird, Gail Tsukiyami. I've been reading a lot of Asian writers the last few years. And then I read a lot of dead writers. I don't read a whole lot of modern, new stuff.
Okay, so you don't have any contemporary favorites that are out there?
Well, Murakami is great. There's a Malaysian guy named Eng, E-N-G is his last name. He's as good as anybody. Those are modern people. Like I say, I'm so terrible at names.
How do you find the people that you want to invite to present at the Jackson Hole Writers Conference? What do you look for?
Niceness and accessibility. We don't bring prima donnas. Generally, teachers are better speakers than people who just do nothing but write. Writers who will be a draw because we have to bring in so many of our registrants are from East Coast and West Coast. It's not a local thing at all. And so we need a name that people have heard of and that we can still afford. So many big writers get speaking agents now, and they're really expensive. So whenever I want to meet somebody, I invite them to come to Jackson, and they love Jackson, and so they come.
Oh, that's good. That's a good plan.
Yeah. And people I've met, there was a while there I did a lot of book festivals and book fairs and other conferences. And I got a network of people there that I've brought all of them in from time to time.
Well, I want to invite you back, and I want you to bring one of your favorite, something that you've written that you really take pride in. I'm going to have you read it.
Well, I write that it's a story for the Jackson Hole magazine twice a year. Those are short and generally pretty funny. I used to write a column for the paper every week, but it was hard to keep that up and still write fiction. Those things for Jackson Hole magazine, they're usually funny and short.
Okay. It's nice to hear your voice. And when you say you've written about yourself a lot, you're just you, but when you have characters, you can be 10 different people.
Yeah, a lot of my characters are me with no filters. And so here's how I would be if I could be that way. If I was willing to say anything to anybody, which I'm not. I mean, nobody is in real life. But I write about people who are usually not that nice and not that lovable, but then by the end of the book you love them because you understand them finally. Like with Lydia.
And they grow on you.
Yeah, you start to understand why these, like an Archie Bunker kind of character. That at first you can't stand and then you love them. That's how most of my characters are, I guess.
That's interesting. It's been so great talking to you. Thank you.
It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'm Emmy DeGrappa. This Think Why podcast is brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. We use the humanities as a lens to explore the human experience. You can find us online at thinkwhy.org.